Thank you, Doug. I'm excited to be here. Doug said, hey man, can you come out and teach high-end residential sales? And I've never actually taught this class before, so this is all new content, and I really got excited about it because this is really where our niche is. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about systems, but we've really built in systems in our sales process. And so those pieces of paper right there, you're going to see, we're going to go into those. But we're kind of in the information age, right? We've seen things on YouTube, we get it on Facebook, like there's a lot of forums, there's information everywhere, right? But the problem is we don't put it into action. And so that's why I wanted to give you those sheets today, is because today when you guys leave, I want you guys to put these things into action when you get back, and you are gonna see results the next week. And I'm not joking there. If you put this into action, you do the steps that we're gonna show you, you will see results right away. So we're going to jump into this. High-end residential sales. How many in here are doing high-end, what I would call high-end residential, your McMansions? Or are you guys doing like the cookie cutter? Awesome, we got one back here. All right, so most of you guys, are you guys doing high-end? Good, okay. So is there anybody in here that are doing like the cookie cutter houses or want to be kind of in and out, kind of looking for that, let's do more work? Okay, cool. So that's what we did in the very beginning. When I started my company, it was like whatever I could do to pay the bills. So I don't know if you kind of know about my backstory. Growing up in a trailer park, my dad was never in the picture. My mom was mentally handicapped. She would hear voices and all this stuff and kept me out of school. That's why I'm not going to be writing on the whiteboard today. No, I'm just messing. But I had to make my own way. So in the very beginning, I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about business systems, right? So I really had to kind of, recreate the wheel, if you will. But then I really got onto some coaches and really started implementing things. And that's what I want to go over today. So what we're going to be talking is, where are they? So this was the biggest thing. So I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. And, we're in an industry kind of area, right? A lot of, factories, that kind of stuff. But I was like, man, we don't really have any tile roofs or slate roofs, And I'm like, I see these guys on Facebook and they're cleaning these huge houses. I'm like, man, we don't have those around here. Well, come to find out, we do. So these are just some of the things. So where do we find them? So we use Realtor.com, Zillow, where we do our simple market research, if you will. So when I go into an area, or if I'm starting a new branch somewhere, I'm going to find out where those juicy, and it's funny because I taught another class that says juicy, and the guy's like, dude, every time you said juicy, we would drink to it. And so I said juicy a lot, and I don't know what happened after that, but he's like, we drank a lot that night. But no, you want to find those juicy houses, right? The big, what I call McMansions, because those are our ones that we know in a crappy economy, if you will, isn't going to affect them, right? They still need to, take care of their investment. They still need to wash their house, their windows. Their wife can still go out and buy a $500 purse, and they're not worried about it, right? So I was like, I really need to find out what's going on here. And so I really started diving in and looking at that. So I looked at golf courses. I looked at lakes. I looked at all these areas around my area as far as schools, because that's where the money was. And you can go on, Zillow, you can even go on USPS.com, and you can go into the EDM routes for EDM, and you can find out what their average medium income is, and you can find out like the routes where those houses are, where you really want to find, where you want to target your McMansions. And so, in high-end residential sales here, it's very profitable. Okay, so this is almost a niche. And I don't know if you guys seen some of my videos where I do my marketing calendar. We have 4 niches that we go after, and high-end residential is it. Because the little, the cookie cutter homes, they're gonna come, don't get me wrong. They're gonna see my trucks, they're gonna see the yard signs, they're gonna come. These ones necessarily won't, because they're not looking for that stuff. So we're gonna touch on that. But it's a low market, it's low market saturation, right? Not everybody wants to go clean multi-million-dollar homes. You want to know why? Because what happens if they mess it up, right? It costs them money. So they're looking at, I just want to get in there, clean vinyl siding. I don't want to go up high. I don't want to deal with the 40-foot ladders. That's completely fine, But this is a niche that has low market saturation. It's residual income. And, I love Doug's speech earlier, because we're going to touch on a lot of the common denominator things that you're going to see that you're like, Doug said that too. And it's cool because you're going to see that when you see other guys doing things and putting in systems and really replicating, there's a common denominator there. And you'll see that here. But they're loyal buyers. You know, when I do high-end residential tickets, they're the ones that are coming back. They're the ones calling me if I'm not sending the postcard, right? So they're loyal buyers because if they find somebody that really does a good job on their McMansion, they're going to call you back, right? And that creates residual income and loyal buyers. And we're going to talk about some maintenance programs as well. And then you got to keep up with the Joneses, and that's what they do. You know, when you're out doing those houses and you're putting out your signs in front and you got your wrap vehicle, they want to keep up with the Joneses because if you clean that house, they're like, man, they can do a great job for me. I hear that over and over again. If you can keep that guy happy, you can come clean my house because they know the neighbor, right? And they get it. They get the calls and stuff. So it's cool the way it works. And when you do one, they're going to find out, you know, who did that house. You're going to get onto the different HOA websites. And then they're going to promote you that way as well. And then it's going to spread. So you're not looking at just doing that one house, whereas some guys are just doing these one houses for price, right? And then you don't get other ones. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, you know, how to market to them. So here's one of our flyers. You guys can kind of take a look at that. But EDDM, you know, when you're doing high-end residential, how do you think they want to be marketed to, right? And these are just things that we've used that work really, really well. So high-end magazines, they're a little bit pricey. And I put the ones in red that I do that are low cost in the beginning. And then as we started doing more and more and more, then we started getting into high-end magazines where they actually promote, you know, families in that subdivision, if you will. And they, you know, what's going on in the neighborhood, those kinds of magazines. Those are the high-end magazines that you want to be in because that's where they're going to see you over and over again. Clip flyers. Now, clip flyers aren't always good in high-end neighborhoods because you have property managers, right, that are staying there. Sometimes this is a second home for them. So if you throw a flyer in their driveway, guess what happens? You know, it stays there for a long time. It gets ruined, and then it just goes in the trash. So think about in your area, because every area is a little different. I went out and I did a sales boost on site in Michigan. And I actually called him and I said, hey man, we did a little simple market research. I said, do some EDDM to right on the coast where he was, around Michigan Lake and stuff like that. So when I come out, we can have some leads because I didn't want him to go flyer it because, again, it's a second home. They might not be there. It might be a property manager there that's checking it weekly. There's a lot of differentiators there. So we did an EDM blast and I ended up going out. It was 4 days. And in 2 days, out of the 4 days that I was there, I did sales. And I sold $11,000 in 2 days while I was there. And so it works. Like if you go in there and you do EDM or you just kind of go to that neighborhood, it may not work. So this opened us up to getting our foot in the door. And then as we were in there, you can see those dirty homes. And then you can see if there's a nice car in the driveway. Well, those ones we actually flyered. And we put them in the paper boxes. We didn't throw them on the driveway. You know, it's kind of a courtesy thing to put it in the paper box, but we want to replicate those efforts. So clip flyers can be used in certain areas. SendGym, has anybody heard about SendGym in here? Yes. So with SendGym, you guys can look that up. You could actually do a radius bomb. So when you get that high-end home, you can click on it, and in SendGym, you can mail to that radius, so the ones right around that. We actually do that with our Check It Out flyers. So our technicians hand out our Check It Out flyers. And then we actually do a SendGym around that area, which is about 2 weeks later. And that works out really, really well because they're getting the initial, hey, check out Mrs. Smith's house, right? Keeping up with the Joneses. And then 2 weeks later, they get it out again. And just another kick in the pants. Because again, they're busy, right? They're procrastinators. High-end clients usually have a lot going on. But our flyer, you can see here, we've designed it because high-end clients, they're educated. They're doctors, they're lawyers, right? All that kind of stuff. And so we've really designed our flyer to be message over brand, and on our yard sign is brand over message. So on our yard sign, our logo's at the very top. On our flyers, our message is at the top, if that makes sense. And so that way they can really grasp this, that we see the discount on there and that kind of stuff, and we get their attention. But local restaurants is another thing. You guys got to think outside the box. Where do these guys go? What restaurants do they go to? Can you buy the coasters and put it and give it to the restaurant? Can you advertise on their menus? like where are they going? You know, high-end restaurants and stuff like that, or mom and pops local to that subdivision. That's where you want to get in the door there. And then HOA Facebook pages. Nextdoor app. That's the one I was thinking of earlier. Is the Nextdoor app. We use that a lot. So like when our guys are done, when we're doing a high-end house, we actually text message before and after pictures to the homeowner and say, hey, by the way, do you have the Nextdoor app? A lot of our clients have that in their communities, and they actually spread it, right? Not us promoting it, they're promoting it. And then it just trickles in. But you got to have referral programs, you know, with them. Because again, you know, they have the cigar bars or the, you know, all that kind of stuff. I literally send our clients our wrap shirts. They're like, dude, that is such a cool shirt. You know what I mean? I'm like, great, can I send you one? He's like, yeah. So when they go golfing, they wear this thing. They got buddies, they got, you know, people, or they go to breakfast or whatever. So think about ways that you can really get into the communities, golfing communities, all those kinds of things to get these high-end, you know, clients. And then yard signs. Yard signs work really good. Whenever we're doing like, we go above and beyond. So we put out 40,000 clip flyers. We put out minimum 200 yard signs a month. And so when we do high-end communities, we're putting the yard sign across the street. If it's wooded, you know, if it's a home, you can't. But if it's wooded, we're putting it across the street so they're seeing us on the way in for a week, you know, and it stays up about a week. And then our territory managers, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but our territory managers put those out, and then when it gets taken down, they put out another one because we're always in that community. We always got to be seen. And then they'll see us on Facebook, Nextdoor, yard sign, maybe a clip flyer. It might be, you know, the magazine, but you got to be in front of them constantly because they're busy. Yes, sir.
On all that you're doing, the yard signs and clip flyers and all that, are you using the same phone number for everything, or are you doing trackable phone numbers?
So we are doing the same phone number because our office ladies are trained with their scripts on how did you hear about us. So we haven't done any tracking phone numbers as far as like different marketing pieces. We've kind of dialed it in, and back when we started doing clip flyers, we've done 7 different flyers to really get the results, but we have 4 different ones that are really, really good. But that's a great point, you know, putting phone numbers on different things to see where they're coming from. We just have that right in our call script is what we do. And then they run the report on what is working every week. So I get a report on where every call came from, what the close ratio is for each rep, when the calls come in, like Mondays versus Fridays. So we can actually, like in our busy season, we have 2 girls in the office on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And Thursday and Friday, the call volume dies down, so we don't need that extra person. So we actually figure out when we can, you know, take those calls. And then your online game. So how many in here have what I call an awesome SEO'd website? Would you say? Right, Berg? Okay. So, all right. So we got about 5-6 people in here, right? So why would you say your website isn't SEO'd or is not excellent? Who wants to get out on a limb here? What's that?
My wife helped. Let me just get out put it out there.
Okay, yeah.
We don't have an SEO, you know, stuff like that. The information put out there is not as educational as it can be. We know where the weaknesses are, but we have to.
Okay, no, great.
Backlinks, I feel like my own page, off page,
Sure, yeah, it's not backlinking and, okay.
the speed and all of that stuff.
Yup,
keywords,
no, yes, yeah. No, all that's really important, but you have a site, which is a start, right? But you do want to make it, if you're targeting high-end homes, like your site's got to be really good, because what are they going to do? When they get your flyer, they're going to go to your website, they're going to look at your reviews, so you got to have a great website. And SEO helps because you're targeting those high-end areas. They don't want to go searching on on Google. They want to look at the first 3-4 people, and then they want to click on that, and they want to look at the reviews and make sure you're a good, reputable company before you come out. It's got to have great reviews on there. You got to have a great company portfolio, like pictures, before and after pictures, that kind of stuff. SEO, if you're not good at the SEO, pay somebody to do it, because it's going to pay, to actually get these clients. If you're not doing this kind of stuff, you're not going to get these clients. And then you have a clear branding and message. So we do, every year, we actually do new messages and new branding. Like we might do, let us, clean the dirt, or let us do the dirty work. We had that a couple years back. Yes, sir?
I say, Pat, also, I think, especially with the higher end people, it's important that it's viewable on their phone and on their tablet as well too. So
100%.
because these are the kind of people who will sit on their couch and look at their iPad.
That is a great point. So yes, yeah, because that's where they're busy, right? So if they're like, hey, the honeydew is to call and get the house clean, they're gonna go on their phone, maybe, during work or whatever it is, and it's gotta be, to where it's fast and it comes up on your phone so it's not like blurred and things are all off. Mine has been there before. We had to go through 3 web guys just to get it locked in. Yes, sir.
Is your site on the first page?
No, it's not.
Mine's on the third. That's the worst part about mine. I've got a friend that says she can fix it, but I just haven't gone down that road yet.
Yes.
I'm super lazy too, and first page, once I get past the app, those AD,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, I'll check that stuff out.
Yeah, in the map
Yeah,
pack.
if I'm sitting there on free, then that's kind of like.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, so our stuff and the online world in Facebook is great and it's really needed now, but the boots on the ground, like the EDDM and stuff, you want to drive them to your website. Now, don't get me wrong, if they're searching Google and stuff, that's completely fine. Those are like free leads, for us.
What's
But
EDDM stand for?
Every door direct marketing. And so what we do is, because we're not on the first page, and we're working on it, don't get me wrong, and Google's got the algorithms and all that stuff, and you always got to play with it to be in the map pack. But with that being said, I drive traffic to my website, through my clip flyers, EDDM, through the magazine. That's how we're really generating it. But you still got to be available to your customers, right? So having a good website where the SEO, when they type in pressure washing or precision pro wash, obviously it's going to come right up. But our website looks really good. And we've been through, like I said, 3 web developers because they're looking at that and they don't want, Joe Schmo, looking at that. You gotta look the part. And that's what we're gonna talk about is having the uniforms looking the part from the start, that way they're like, okay, I have a similar house, like this one right here. This was actually for a dealership. The guy owns several dealerships in our area. And so we like to use big things, you know what I mean? Landmarks, that kind of stuff. So they're like, oh my word, they did that house? Because everybody knows that house. It's like, it almost looks like a gold roof. It's crazy, but it's actually plastic. And we ended up cleaning it. And so we have that on our website because we're actually the preferred vendor for the Cliffs community in our area. And this is a community, there's 7 of them, and Tiger Woods developed that. And so this is not far from 2 of those. And so that's why I did that. I put that one on there because now they can associate that, and it's a big home. It's not a square, you know what I mean, that cookie cutter home, if you will. So now they're like, okay, cool, this is a really big house. And so with the website, you really got to look the part, have the reviews on there, have that stuff. And I have only a couple pages, you know what I mean? I didn't want to go over and, you've seen so much stuff on the websites before where you get lost. Don't have a ton of stuff, but have that stuff right there. Award-winning cleaning. If you're a BBB member, you're not allowed to say the best #1 pressure washing company in the state, because BBB will tell you, well, you got to take that down. So, but there's loopholes, right? So we did the award-winning cleaning, and we kind of promoted that, and that's worked out really well for us. Is doing this stuff. But you need to look the part, and so here's our territory managers. Your branding really has to be on point. Keep everything the same. And I always say this over and over again, but you want that Chick-fil-A model, right? Where you can have the system where it's the same thing over and over again. And now I used to use McDonald's, the same crappy cheeseburger over and over again, but you know what you're gonna get. Now it's Chick-fil-A because their branding's on point, right? But your wrap vehicles, when you're going out there, that was the biggest thing for me was wrapping the vehicle. And it was like literally I had one truck, I wrapped it, and then everybody's like, dude, how many trucks you got on the road? I'm like, I got one. You know what I mean? But they were seeing me everywhere. And so now at our one location here in Duncan, I think we have like 14 vehicles, and they're all over the place all the time. They're like, dude, I see you killing it. And I do a lot of Facebook stuff to promote that. But they see us everywhere with the wrap vehicles. And so back in the day, we had actually Rangers, then we went to Priuses, and I love the Priuses because they're green, you know what I mean? So we kind of keep up with the Good Stewards type logo. But you can't hear them. So like when I'm going to these higher end homes, I did a quote, I don't know, I guess it was the end of last year, and this guy, I pulled up in the Prius, and then I was like, hey, my wife's coming, you're gonna have to back up. And I literally put it in reverse and just roll back, and kind of pull forward, and he's like, I didn't even hear the car. Like, is that electric? And I was like, yeah, actually. And then that got me talking about our Good Stewards program, how we use the 12-volt SureFlow pumps, how all our chemicals are biodegradable, low VOC, ship's non-hazardous. And so anyway, go into all this stuff, and they're like, dang, okay, so now you're becoming that educator like Doug was saying. You gotta educate, right? But you gotta have professional uniforms. So it starts with, and you guys have the 19 points to a sale, where you park your vehicle, right? How you dress. We're actually gonna be going away from the full dye sub shirts. We're gonna be doing more traditional logo over the chest, because our high-end customers, they don't, these are fun and stuff like that. We're gonna give them away, don't get me wrong, but we want a more professional, sleek look, because you gotta figure out why you're winning, right? When you go do a quote, how are you winning? Do you put a breath mint in? You know what I mean? Like, when I was young and I was 20 years old when I started, I had to wear glasses so they could trust me. You know what I mean? They're like, you own the business? Well, yeah. You know what I mean? They're like 20 years old. You can clean my $1 million mansion? So I started wearing glasses. I started getting buttoned-up shirts. You know what I mean? And I'm like trying to figure out how to close these deals. Our Asheville branch, the owner of that wears what do you call it? I can't even think of the name. A sports coat. He wears a sports coat on all his estimates. And I'm like, dude, does that really work? He's like, yeah, my close ratio is this. When I wasn't wearing it, it was this. And then when I took it off, it started going down. I was like, all right, but he's focusing on his wins. He's like, I don't care how you win. You got to figure out what you're doing, though, to win those quotes. That's what we got really, really good at with our territory managers or your home consultants, right? We weren't selling people. The process sells itself. We're going to dive into that with the invoice and everything. But uniforms are really, 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 really important. Company portfolio. How many of you guys have a company portfolio with before and after pictures that you actually hand the customer? My man Ray, okay? Nice, good deal. So is it like a spiral bound, or are you guys doing a binder?
Well, I got like a pamphlet.
Okay, yeah, that works, yep. Yeah, heck yeah.
Well, that pamphlet and the door hangers have some that are pretty, like one roof that was red roof that was black.
Yep.
It was red, it was pretty stark.
Love it, yeah. No, that's good.
So
So,
it hasn't yielded a job yet, but it's pretty cool pamphlet.
okay, so we gotta check the ROI on that, but yeah. But if you put it in place, that's the thing though, you gotta try it, right? So I wanted to bring my company portfolio, and I apologize I didn't bring it, but ours is, they cost about $100. We get them made at Staples. It's a spiral bound book, like nice paper, thick paper. They're actually laminated pages now because we COVID proof them, if you will. We sanitize them when we give them to people. But we have, some of them I think have about 60 pages in them, right? And so our company portfolio has our before and after. It's got the testimonies, and it actually has in the very back profile on competitor companies. Because we want to educate. I'm not bashing anybody by no means, but I want to educate them on, hey, these are the things that are going on, right? And then I give it to them, and they can look at it, they can do it while I'm walking around doing my measurements, that kind of stuff, but it's a tool. The company portfolio is a tool, and you'll see on the 19 points to a sale that we hand that to them. So when we get there, we hand it to them, we do a walk around with the customer, building a relationship, and then they take that inside the home. That's actually my anchor to get to the kitchen table or to wherever the decisions are made. Now it's a little bit different with COVID, you know what I mean? You're like, Pat, how do you get to the kitchen table? Well, the cool thing with the Toyota Priuses is the back spoilers flat, like the windshield is like flat, that's the kitchen table. I say, come on in, and then I'll sell it right on the back of the Prius, But you gotta make it to where, you get that and you're building that relationship. But presentation folders, these are really good. Obviously the HVAC company got it in lock, right, with the presentation folders. All our estimates we do presentation folders on now, and we have our 4-stepper in there, and it basically is like we're built on trust, it's a local company, family owned and operated, and it basically steps down. So each piece of paper is just a little bit shorter than the other, and it has the topics on it. Then I have like the growth algae map in there, I have our insurance, I have the estimate, the carbon copy in there. And so everything's in that presentation folder. So when I go back to the home, after I do all the measurements and everything, and I crunch my numbers in the car, I go back and then I actually go over all those things that were in my company portfolio that are in my presentation folder. So it's like hitting them with value. And we're going to talk about more about value and how we build that value up so the process and everything sells itself. I'm not big on pushy sales. I always say, look, we're in soft washing, we do soft sales. I want them to make the educated decision. And I tell them, I'm like, yeah, I want you to make the educated decision. So if you got to get 3 bids, not a problem. But Mrs. Smith, A, B, and C, I just gave you 3 bids. You got to ask for the business too. So you're like, which package would you like to go with today? And so we're going to dive into that more. But do you guys do estimates or do you do quotes? Quotes. You guys do quotes? Awesome. All right, does anybody do estimates in here? Okay, so you do an estimate. Doug does an estimate in the back. All right, so you do an estimate. So, yes, thank you. No, but so I don't like the word estimate, right? Because a lot of people, they do it. We've seen it in carpet industries where they go out and then they're like, hey, it's $149, right, for this. And then when they get out there, they're like, well, actually, you got more of this, or you got more of this, and it's actually going to be this. I don't like that. I give quotes. High-end residential clients, they want to know what the number is. They're numbers people, right? They don't want to get an estimate and say, okay, well, it'll be about this. No. Doug was talking in his presentation how you own up to that quote. Like if you estimate the job and then you go out there and you underbid it, own up on it, fix the problem, don't do it again, because that's a thorn in your foot, obviously, and you won't probably do it again. So like when I'm training territory managers, right, you're like, well, how do you know? And me and Ray were talking about earlier on the pricing structure of how they know where to quote it, but sometimes they mess up, right? And salespeople, when you start getting into hiring salespeople, that's their livelihood. So they're like, well, Mrs. Smith, you know what? We can just add that in right there, okay? And then when my technicians get out and they're like, dude, the job was like way underbid and all this stuff, right? Well, we actually backed up from that and we have checks and balances now. So whenever a territory manager goes out there and he quotes the job, he goes through, he quotes it, we give the customer the estimate sheet, and then they bring it back to the office where either my sales director or myself will approve the quote. So we go over the numbers. See the pre-inspection sheet that you guys have right there? That is our pre-inspection sheet. You guys need to be doing pre-inspection sheets on all your quotes. You're taking your before and after pictures. You're taking the measurements on everything. You're not just putting your finger in the air and going, all right, it's going to be $600 today. Because what happens is when you get into high-end residential, they're like, yeah, you charge them $6,800 and you're charging me $4,800. My house is pretty much the same size. Well, Mrs. Smith, actually on their, inspection sheet, they had the pool, they had this, we were doing a lot more stuff, you know what I mean? Or in this case, it's like, well, they're just doing the exterior soft washing. So now you have a bearing of why your price is different. Every house is different, right? So the pre-inspection sheet is adding value too. So whenever I go out and I do a quote, I'm adding value to the homeowner by saying, hey, by the way, I noticed your gutters, are sagging or they're leaking, or, they're not looking at their properties every day. So you're adding value by doing a pre-inspection of their home, and you're adding that value by saying, hey, I saw this, or missing paint. Or by the way, the last guy that did your house, on the dormer that's like 7 stories up and around the corner that you can only see from the very far corner of the property, that they never did, or you can actually see where the painter like halfway painted up the wall. I've seen that before where the painter just, because they're like, well, he won't see it, we'll just do like 3 feet in here and all of this is bare wood, and oh, by the way, it's rotting. I take pictures of that stuff and I add value to the homeowner, because those are the little things that I break out the 40-foot ladder for and I get done for them, because that's their investment, right? And so all this stuff is adding value. You can kind of see this kind of come into fruition, right? How we're building the value. And so with our estimate sheet or our quote sheet, you don't want to say estimate. You always want to say we quote everything. This is a tool. So this is very similar. Ours isn't quite like this, but this is really cool. This is actually from Conquer. Brandon Vaughn created this, and it has 3 packages, and you can see it's red, yellow, green. Because what does the stoplight do? Red, yellow, green, right? We're kind of programmed for that. Well, green is go, so that's package C. That's everything on the property. Package A, which is in red, is what they called for, and then package B is what I think as a professional I would do if this were my home, right? And so we break everything down. Because I've heard so many stories of where you guys quote a whole bunch of stuff, and then they're like, well, actually, I just want this. And you're like, well, actually, that's not really the price. That was the discounted price. And then you're kind of walking you're backtracking a little bit. Now they're like, well, what do you mean? You know what I mean? And that does happen, don't get me wrong. But with this sheet, you're not going to have price shoppers. You're going to have 3 prices, and that's your price. Now, I'll tell you a little story when I was doing a quote, and this was a large home in a large community, and the guy's got, it was a Mercedes. I mean, it was crazy. The vehicles in the driveway were just like, I'm like, oh my word. And coming from a trailer park, I'm like, no way. He's got this, that's so cool. And so I'm presenting this quote, and you really have to have confidence. We're going to talk more about that, but you have to have confidence when you're doing these quotes, because when I went into this gentleman, I presented the prices, he like literally looked at me, and he's like, I didn't say anything, because when you talk, you lose, right? So you spin the quote around, you're all like cool about it, and you're just reading them, and he's looking at it, and he's like, all right, so, yep, all right. He's like, so how long is this job going to take? And I was like, well, depending on the packages, if you go with package C, which is, I forget what it was, $3,200 or $3,600, and you're looking at an all-day job. And he's like, all day, okay. And so he's like, so that's like over $300 an hour. And I was like, yes, sir. And I was like, well, and I kind of went in, and he kind of got me off guard. And I was like, well, with our professional equipment and all this stuff, and we can get it done in a timely manner. You don't want us on your property for more than a day, probably anyway. So anyway, we kind of chuckled a little bit, and he's like, well, you're making like, that's a lot of money. He's like, I'm a doctor, and I don't even make that. And I was like, yes, sir. I was like, well, that's why I'm not a doctor anymore. And I was like, and he was just like, and he just starts breaking up, and we're laughing, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, but seriously, like, we got it down to a science. I said, you're paying $3,600, but you're paying for my knowledge, you know what I mean? You're paying for certified technicians to come out. And so we went into it a little bit, and he was like, we ended up getting the job, but it was like the funniest thing is he like lined it up, and you just have to make him laugh, And he appreciated it because he knows numbers, and that's what he did. But Americans like choice, right? So they always ask for 3 bids. We've heard it over and over again. Why not give them 3 bids? You guys know you're the best for them, right? We all know. Because you think, we're a little biased, right? We're like, I'm the best company. Why? Because you know what you do, right? But you got to know what your worth is too, right? With your prices and stuff. These high-end guys, if you come in at a low price, they might look at that as, well, maybe I'm not getting the value. Whereas if we come in and we're 3 times higher than anybody else, they're like, well, what's different about you? You know what I mean? And this is what's different. And we talked about that to where, we back up everything. If we mess something up on their property, a camera, any of that stuff, we're going to take care of it. And that was really big. When I had a territory manager, Sam Brooks, he was our best sales guy. And he had this, his spiel was, and he used it a lot, but it was, he owned the biggest roofing company, Brooks Roofing, in Greenville. And so he retired, and he's hanging out with the grandbabies and everything. He's like, I want a reputable company that I can go work for and kind of get away from, I know we got a lot of wives here, but he was like, I got to get out of the house, and my wife is killing me with to-dos, right? And so he went and did sales for me. He's like, actually, this isn't work. If I go home, that's work. And I was like, all right. But obviously he's joking. But he really did love the job, and he would use our company and like how we grew and everything like that. And he had a spiel of, I own the largest roofing company, and we were based on integrity. And that's what we do as Precision Pro Washes. We don't come in there and say, here's the price, but actually the price is over here. This is your price. This is what we do. And if you have any issues, literally, I'm there the next day or, within that couple hours. We're there to take care of it. And that's what the big team is. When you get somebody that's, a smaller company, yeah, they're great. Don't get me wrong. They're awesome. But with a bigger company, we can take care of you a little bit better because we have more people. I can send them, I can dispatch them out and take care of that. And so those are things that we use, when we're talking to high-end customers. And plus, we've done a lot of houses. We've run into so many different things as far as roofing products, things that we've just seen. And then if we're doing a quote, we can bring those up to them, And so you're adding that value. And then that professional packet. Again, putting your quote sheet in that folder, that professional packet really sets you apart when you're leaving that behind. Because again, they're making an educated decision. I don't make any decisions without my wife, especially if it's something over $3,000. So if I go into a quote, I'm like, I'm not expecting them to close on the spot, but a lot of times they do. But other times they're like, hey, I need to talk to my wife. Not a problem. Here's my packet so you can educate her on what I'm telling you, right? Because he's got to sell it to her or she's got to sell it to him, vice versa, right? And so it's important to have that packet there. And then being insured. So these are things too that I put on my invoice that actually isn't on this one, but I want to put like insured. I want to put workers' comp, certified, any kind of badge that you have. On my first screen, Doug was on me earlier about my 2011 Angie's List reward. Man, why you got it? No, I'm just messing. But no, we got a lot obviously since then, but we've got all kinds of awards. You want to put that stuff on there. Anything that you can put on your invoice that sets you apart. Yes, sir.
You know, and what Pat's leaving behind too is talk about the intrinsic, the inherent value in this package that you're leaving behind. Whenever you consider that probably half of your competition is literally scrawling something on a matchbook cover.
Yeah.
And saying, you know, here, what looks better, the precision package or a hand scrawled one-page, you know,
Yes.
quote
Yep.
or estimate, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. You got to look different. I mean, some of these guys, they look at bids every day. You know, they know, like when we got into the Cliffs community, the guy who actually runs it, we washed his house. So he got a clip flyer on his driveway, called me, then we went out and did the presentation. He had a lot of scribble scrabble estimates. He said, dude, yours was like by far the presentation was amazing. And so we ended up cleaning his house, blew him away. Then we did the Cliffs community, like their actual clubhouse. And then we did every single other one. And now we do all that stuff from that one thing. And so that presentation or that packet really, really helps out. And the estimate sheet is a tool. That is a tool to get your average ticket, like depending on what it is, but you can double it by doing packages. And then we talk about green, you know what I mean? A lot of people are on the green kick. And so that's where we talk about the Prius and stuff like that. So put that kind of stuff on there where you're getting your cleaners. Cleaners have come so far, you know, surfactants, all that stuff, 10 years. Now a lot of this stuff is really, really good stuff. Put that on there, you know, promote that stuff. So we're going to talk about how you win. So here's that yard sign right across the street that I was telling you about in the wooded area. You know, my guys, they post pictures. So we have this app called Flock. It's free. It's Flock. They kind of joke. The guys joke around. I don't normally do this, but they're like, you know, you better be on that Flock or they'll say, what the flock are you doing? You know, they put all these little jokes in there. But this guy posted this in Flock, and we're always promoting in Flock with our company culture, like when they're putting out yard signs and stuff. And we'll put this up on our social media, but it's just fun what we do. And so how you win, right? You have to be persistent. Persistence is like the biggest thing. The second biggest thing is your attitude, and you have to be at a level 7 excitement. I found this to be true because when you're excited about your company or your product, it transfers, right? So sales is a transfer of emotion to that buyer. And so you really got to be excited when you're doing those quotes, but you also got to be seen, you got to be persistent. So they always say it's 7 times. It goes up every year. You guys notice that? It's like, hey, you got to be seen 5 times before they buy. Well, every year it goes up because they're advertisers. They're selling to us. They want us to spend a little bit more money, right, each year. But the whole thing is there's a study on it. You got to be seen 7 times before they buy, right? So it might be Facebook. It might be a yard sign. It might be a clip flyer, EDDM, a mailer, an email, whatever it is, a truck. You really got to be seen 7 times before they really start, you know, thinking about your company and researching your company. But answer the phone the right way. So, you know, answering the phone was the biggest thing. When I got my office lady, we grew 30% because she started answering the phones. It was like a softer voice, right? And she was always smiling when she answered the phone. But it's really important to answer the phone. When these high-end clients are calling you, you know, you better answer the phone, because if it's a call service or something like that, they're not going to want to waste their time, right? Their time is more valuable. They might be at $300 to $500 an hour. That's what their time is, and they know that. And so you got to know what their time is worth and then take advantage of that. While they're on the phone, we get the leads. Back in the day, when they called in, we said, okay, great, we're going to send this to our territory manager, and he's going to be in touch with you. We don't do that anymore because it was really hard to get back in touch with these clients because they're so busy, right? They're in meetings, they're whatever. And so when we get them on the phone, you better cherish that time. Doug had an awesome piece of paper. You saw that lead sheet? We have one very, very similar, and that's where we write in all our information, and then we put it in our database. but that lead sheet is everything, and we track it. So we actually have chains in our office. And so for every territory manager, they have a lead sheet. So all the lead sheets go on the left for that territory manager, and then every quote goes on the right. And so we actually replicate that. So for every lead that comes into the company, they have to come back with 2 quotes. And this kind of tells me about, when you guys quote over the internet, or you're quoting, over Google or whatever, or over the phone, go do estimates in person. These people, high-end clients, need to see you, right? They're not going to want to quote over the phone. They want you to come look at their property because they have the 80-inch TV on the back patio. They have the security cameras. It's on a cliff, right? There's a lot of factors in that. We did one, Mr. Thompson, and his guest house, there was a bridge going to his guest house. His guest house was like 3 times the size of my house. And then his actual house was huge. And literally, we were talking about putting a tree stand in the tree that's on the cliff to spray this roundabout on the roof. It was insane. Like, we were like, how are we going to do this? And so we had to get really creative with it, and we used a drone. So we used drone technology to actually clean the roof, because we were watching from the drone, because you couldn't see it from anywhere else. So we were like watching, and we had the noodle out the side balcony to spray this roof, but we got it done safely, and we used drone technology. So guess what we did for all the other ones that were just like that home? I was like, hey, by the way, we use drone technology. You're like, drone technology? What are you talking about? All I did was fly the drone by his house and look at where I'm spraying. I'm like, hey, turn right. Turn right. Left with the walkie-talkie. But you make it, right? You're selling the sizzle, but you're also being impactful, and you're helping them on their investment, because guess what? Somebody else will be climbing the tree, and they're like, I got it! And they're spraying it off the tree, right? Because they want to make a buck. No, do it safely, right? They want to invest in you. You got to invest in them and be honest with those things. If you can't handle the job, tell them. Like, I can't tell you how many times where there's jobs where we're like, hey, man, to be honest with you, I can't clean that gutter here, but we can do everything else but that gutter. And they're like, hey, I really appreciate you being honest with me. Because I don't want to put my employees in danger, right? Be honest with them. And they'll know that. But you got to have a script. When you're calling in and they're calling, you better have a script. If you're putting an office manager in place or anybody else answering the phone, they need to educate that customer right from the gate, right? Because they're going to ask some qualifying questions, because they want to make sure that you're the company for the job. And so make sure that you have a script in there that really, educates that customer. And then this one is dispatching a TM. And so you guys hear the term territory manager or home service consultant. I like territory manager because each salesperson has a dedicated territory, and they work it. That's their business, right? So they go to BNI groups in there. They go to the chamber meeting. They develop that territory. And then what it does is we have zip codes in that territory. So it might be 15, 20, depending on the territory. And so when they call into the office, they're like, hey, great. They get their address, and they're like, oh, 29367. Oh, great, that's going to be Sam. That's how we find out which territory manager is going to service that client. Because if Sam's out throwing flyers and he's working the territory and seeding the field, he wants to make the harvest, right? So that's how we do it. When you get territory managers, they're like wild horses. I'm serious. If you don't have a system, and we're going to talk more about systems tomorrow, but if you don't have a system, they're like, hey, man, we need to go wash trucks over here. I'm like, whoa, no, we're soft wash company. We're not even equipped. Buy the equipment, Pat. There's money over here. No, dude, stay in your lane. Like, they want to go all over the place. And so I'm like, I've been there, man. And so you got to put them in the right direction, and you got to hold them accountable in those sales meetings. And then every time you get a lead, right, you're going over that kind of stuff. Your close ratio. But it's all about serving the customer. And Doug, his presentation was amazing, how you're a servant, right? Because that's what we are. Again, sales is emotion. It's a transfer of emotion. Big businesses are just more how many people can you serve, right? That's what it is. What are you capable of? And sometimes we become the bottlenecks in our business because we don't hire people, right? And we think we can do it all. Be honest with you, you can't, and you don't have to be on the truck. When we started our Asheville branch, he literally had 2 technicians right out the gate, didn't clean anything his first year. He did sales, and then we hired another territory manager 2 months later, and then he did over $300,000 his first year in business, not even knowing how to clean anything. So I say all that because you can get off the truck. And if you guys implement these sheets and these systems, and you put the people in place, the money will come. And then you're going to find these, good, juicy houses and make some really good money off of it. And then you can serve them at a higher level. So you got to be the pair. And we talk about apples to apples, and you guys have heard about that, right? We want to be the pair, the meanest, greenest soft washing company in the area. So how do you do that, right? You want to do it with certifications, training. How many in here, is this your first training event? Okay, awesome.
For pressure.
Cool. For pressure washing, yeah, sure, yeah. So first event for pressure washing, that's awesome. Congratulations, guys. You guys are investing in yourself. But no, you want to use that stuff. If you guys have been to 1, 2, 3, 4 shows, you need to use that in your marketing, that you guys are investing in yourself to get better training. Put pictures in your company portfolio with you guys here. You know what I mean? Like talking with other businesses that are larger in different states. Oh yeah, I was just talking to Pat Clark out of Greenville, and he's got 5 trucks and he's doing this. And he taught us this. Like, talk about that stuff, because they want to know that you guys are bettering yourselves and that you're educating yourself on that. Ray's got an amazing plant property protection class, right? Those are things that you can put your employees through. You get them certified, and then you start promoting them. That's what these guys are really looking for, right? They're like, well, great, man, you got this company, but who's coming to my house? You know, Ray said the story about the van showed up, and then those guys came out. Literally, I got guys in my local area that are like, hey, I'll do it for half of precision. Literally, I'll do it for half of precision, and then they go to Home Depot and they pick up the guys and then they go do it, right? Not going to fly with high-end residential, right? They want to know who's coming. We use a company called The Seal, or it used to be Ask the Seal, and it's called The Seal. So I don't have it with me, but every employee in my company has a background check. It's a badge that has their picture, their bio. So when I send out a territory manager to these places, they actually get an email with a picture of them, what they do on the weekends, their background check. I mean, it's pretty in depth.
Is that logo on your sleeve? Other sleeve?
Yes. Thank you. Yep, there it is. Yeah. So The Seal, I'm using that. Yes, it costs whatever it is, $50 to $100 a month or something. But that is going to break down the barriers. So when my guys get there, I want to give them the tools to build a bigger, better house, right? So that's a tool in my arsenal that I send to the customer, and they're like, dude, I got the background check. That's awesome. And then they already know the guy's name. So they're like, Sam, come on in. You like some sweet tea? Come on in, man. They do that. Whereas when I went...
How long does the seal take to clear somebody?
So when I hire somebody, I hire them, and usually we start off on Monday. By Thursday that week, I'll have his background check. Yep. And so there's things you can do right before, like if you're onboarding somebody, you can do like an online search and see what their background is before you spend the money with Ask the Seal. There's some free things you can do.
Yeah.
But I just, I make it a system. I don't want to, spend a lot of time on it.
That's also something like House Call Pro, and it's not doing background checks, but House Call Pro is going to say, hey, these are the technicians that are going to show up to your house, and I see this all the time on our Google reviews where Matt and Perry were just absolutely awesome technicians. We enjoyed them so much, and it's, the customers are out there telling us how incredible the technicians are.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's huge because you're breaking those barriers down, and they're showing that's another level of service, that you're giving to them via email, and they're like, okay, I know who's coming on my property, because these days they're like, I don't know who's coming on my property, And so when you start sending that kind of stuff out, they're like, wow, now they're seeing. When I show up to an estimate, and literally I was joking to somebody because we bought some wrapped shoes, and so I got the wrapped shirt, the wrapped shoes, my clipboard's wrapped, the car's wrapped. They're like, you must be expensive. I literally will go in and, oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate you, man. Actually, that one's nice and cold. I'm gonna drink this one fast.
And Pat, also would you talk, once you're in these people's houses, once you're in their mind on these high end, you're just getting those every year now, aren't you? I mean, you're not getting rebid every year.
Correct. Yes. They're just coming back. And that's what I'm saying. My repeats are insane. Like when Sam, he's like, dude, you must be doing something right, because we literally get 8 to 10 repeats. I'm talking like people calling in a week because they know our level of service and they know what they expect and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to bid this stuff out. They don't want to, search and find another good company. You know what I mean? We're already there. And so that's the level that you want to be at, is you got to be the superior company that you're going to serve them over and over again. And they ask for the territory managers too. They're like, is Sam Brooks coming out? And he retired now. So he's like, dude, I'm just hanging out with the grandbabies. I'm like, well, he retired. You're like, oh man, I love that guy. You know, because the culture and like the whole system. But they're like, all right, no big deal, because I know our level of a company, you know, even though that one guy isn't there, the next guy's going to be the same as Sam because of the system, because the ask the seal, you know, all that. And they're like, oh, no problem. You know, I know you're going to send out the best of the best. You know, we get that stuff a lot because of the systems that we do. And so you got to show up with confidence. You know what I mean? When you go do an estimate to $1 million home, I was timid. I was scared. I'm like, dude, I wrote this quote. I'm like, what? I'm like, $8,000? I'm like, no way. I'm not going to pay $8,000, you know, but I'm not my customer, right? I'm not going to pay $8,000 to get my house washed. I'm like, holy, dude, good night. But you gotta be confident in your service. You know what I'm saying? And so when I started doing that, I started training territory managers. You know, I had a younger guy working for me. He's like, dude, I'm going up to the Cliffs community. He's like, can you come with me? I was like, why? He's like, because I know it's going to be a big job. He's like, he already had pulled up on the phone and everything. He's like, this is a big job. He's like, what are the measurements and everything I do? He's like, but I'm not confident in presenting it. And I was like, shoot. So that kind of hit me because they have to be confident in it. They got to believe in what they're selling, right? And so I went out with them and I wrote it all up. And of course, I got to be the big old leader and everything. And I'm like scared. I'm like, dude, this is like $8,000. And so I'm you know, being confident because he's right there next to me. So I'm like measuring all out. I'm like, watch this. And so I walk up, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, but, you know, strangers ring the doorbell and friends knock, right?
Right.
So I always knock on the door. So I knock on the door, and I'm like, hey, you know, we got everything written up and everything. And I'm like, so I kind of go over it. I'm like, so here's everything line item, and then here's our packages. And I always say, for just, and I always add a 7, and I have this in there, but I always have a 7 or a 9. You know, Walmart did an awesome job, right? 97, like 997, you know. So anyway, so I got like, it was like $8,297 or something crazy, right? And I said, for just $8,970, you know, dollars, we're gonna get everything from the roof all the way down to the ground, your driveway, everything. We're gonna take care of everything. You're not gonna have to worry about it. And then I just shut up, right? And so he ended up going with package C. And so my young territory manager with me, he was walking back to the truck, and he's like, dude, I can't believe you just did that. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, it was $8,000. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, well, you got to remember, though, that that's their investment. $8,000 to them really isn't that much money, right? Because it's for their investment, and they don't have to worry about the damage or anything like that. And we were doing a lot of stuff. It was a big job. It was going to take us probably, I don't know, maybe 2 days. And but it was awesome. It was awesome to actually see him do that and be there, because now he can go do that, you know, because he has the confidence. And so, you know, there's a story of where when you hire territory managers, there's this one guy that this company hired, and he didn't know that you couldn't lose a job. And his close ratio was like 100% until he went to the sales meeting the next week. And then the sales manager was like, hey, Johnny's at, you know, 57%. Dude, Johnny, awesome, man. And then the other guy's at 67%. And then, you know, John's like 100%. What are you doing, man? Can you share with the group? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I didn't know you couldn't lose a job. Like, he just went there assuming every job, you know? And there's a science. It's all in our head. Because literally, you know, when you present big prices, we get in our head, we're like, no way.
They're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that, right? That's the first thing that they say. And I literally have territory managers, too, that I'm sitting in the car and they're like, they're not going to go with that. I'm like, yeah, John, what? Why did you say that? Now they're not going to buy. Because it's in our head, right? Like, well, you just ruined it, man. But you have to always, you know, like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because if we say that that's not going to happen, like literally, you speak it into existence almost. Because now you're going to go to the homeowner and you'll be like, well, it's only $8,207, right? And yeah, and you're like, I hope they're not going to rip my head off. Look, they're not going to bite. You know, they might say no. Yeah, sure. But again, if you do the system, that sells itself. When you do the packages, you know, you're making an educated decision for them. You're helping them, okay? And so you got to be at that level 7 excitement. When you are presenting these prices, you got to be excited because you're transferring that emotion to them. They're going to get excited, right? You're like, yeah, your house is going to look awesome. It's going to look really, really good. And don't oversell it. I've had guys oversell it. Like, it's going to look brand new. You know, the side is going to look brand new. No, you know what I mean? Say, hey, your house is 12, 13 years old. It's gonna look amazing with the top of the line chemical solutions and equipment that we have. We're gonna make it look the best that it can. You know, and you're being honest with them. And so again, it sells itself, but you gotta be excited. I can't tell you how many times I've had territory managers not be excited, or they're timid, or they're not going in there with that excitement, and it doesn't work. And then you gotta use buzzwords. How many in here have buzzwords or written out buzzwords?
I have a buzzword that I never use, it's chemical.
It's chemical, okay.
I always use cleaning solution.
Good, yep.
That could open up the door to a whole other thing.
Yep. I actually switched it because somebody said, don't use chemical because you scare people. I love using chemical because I like scaring people. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna chemically treat your home. And they're like, what? Yeah, but don't worry, the chemicals we use are all biodegradable. It breaks into my situation, but
I don't have those yet, so I can't lie about it.
yeah, there you go. But there's buzzwords like chemical, right? And we're gonna talk about our tools, terms, and technology. So I use 3 things that I train all my territory managers on is tools, terms, which are all my buzzwords, and then the technology that we use. These are 3 things that can really change your sales presentation. And those are the tools, terms, and technology. We're gonna kind of jump into those a little bit, but I like to use the buzzwords. So like my tools, of course, are gonna be, my measuring wheel. I always take a measuring wheel on everything, right? I measure everything. Even if I know, I've been to this house, 100 times, it's the same size, we know what it is, I'm gonna measure it. Why? Because people watch. The neighbors watch. The pest control guy that's over there, he's like, what is he doing over there? I'm measuring everything. Because people watch. Remember, it's like an opportunity. When you go out and do a quote, and you don't go to the neighbor, and you just go there, and you're there for 10 minutes, and you write the quote, you leave it on the door, and then you leave, remember this, it's gonna hurt my soul. All right? You gotta replicate. I want you guys to replicate. So when you go out and you do a quote, measure everything, okay? Talk to the neighbor, try to get another quote. These are things that you really, really want to do. But in our tools, again, is our measuring wheel. My vehicle, my wrap vehicle is a tool. I use the pitch gauge, for the house to get the pitch. That's a tool. And we can go into all the tools that we use on these things, but those are your tools. Then I go into my terms. And so when I'm training my territory managers, I'm like, okay, what are some of the terms? I'm talking about, 3-tab shingles, architectural shingles, soffit, fascia, the parapet wall, the bull nose for commercial, right? For commercial properties. You got to know these buzzwords because when a property manager comes to you, you're like, hey, I need this parapet wall cleaned. You're like, parapet wall? Sounds cool. But you don't know what it is, right? You're like, shoot, I better look this. Hold on, give me 1 minute. Google parapet wall, right? But you got to know what these buzzwords are because if you say it before they do, guess what? You're the expert. You're like, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Plants too, like plants, is it good to know those?
Oh yeah. Doug was saying that, right? Because that's what we deal with. And so you can get into Glioklapsa. These are all in my terms, right? We talk about Japanese maple. I'm like, yeah, if it smells bleach, it's done. You know what I mean? With those Japanese maples, like you gotta know, right? A hibiscus, hydrangea, all those different things. But you also need to know the microbial bacteria. Another buzzword, right? So sodium hypochlorite, when it goes into the ground, it kills the microbial bacteria, it sanitizes it. Well, what we do with plant wash is we refortify the soil. So if you're there watering a plant, plants are much like humans, right? They're gonna drink until they're full. So I'm gonna eat until I'm full and I'm not gonna eat anymore. Same with plants. So you water that thing until it's full, and guess what it's not gonna do? Drink your chemical. So, and then afterwards I spray plant wash down and it neutralizes it. So anyway, we get into all this stuff, right? And so when we talk about our terms, we're talking about those buzzwords. We're educating them on ePay deck. Like when I go do these high-end clients, they're not gonna have a pine wood deck on the back of their house, guys. What are they gonna have? What are their decks gonna be made out of?
Marble or ePay.
ePay.
Navy Trex.
Yup. You're gonna have all that stuff. I mean, you're talking high-end stuff. Start researching high-end products. Because if you get out and you get to one of these high-end houses, you're like, dude, I got my first one. And you walk out back and you're like, whoa. And they're like, hey, I got this Brazilian, whatever out here. And you're like, that's cool. You're like, and oh, by the way, the last guys did this. Do you know how to clean this? Or they might say, hey, do you know what kind of wood this is? And you're like, nah, nope, sorry. But I'll find out, but you don't know. So if you start researching these things, I have all my territory managers research building materials. Like they even go to home shows to look at new building materials, right? Because there's new stuff coming out all the time. And so I really want to train them so when we go out to these places, we know what the heck we're talking about. Because again, these homeowners might be builders. It might be the homeowner, it might be the owner of the Home Builders Association or whatever it is, and then they're going to quiz you. So research those kinds of things in your terms. Now,
are your territory managers, are they actually getting into the specifics of, hey, this is Drive-It, and we know that the Drive-It manufacturer says this should not be sprayed at more than 600 PSI. Are they getting that detail with it?
yes, sir, yeah. And it all depends, though. So right before we get into that, we talk about the disc profile. Now, if I'm talking to a customer that's a D or an I may not get as specific as that, but we found that our high-end clients are more of a C. They're calculated, they're cautious, right? And they want to know those things, right? So we have the Drive-It bulletin.
They want to know that you know those.
Correct, yeah. And we have that in our company portfolio, actually, right in dead center in the middle. So if we get somebody, we're like, oh, by the way, the Drive-It manufacturers recommend 600 PSI or less. And then we go into our pumps and everything like that. Yes. So we educate our territory managers to be the expert in whatever we're doing. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the e-pay deck, right? We're not going to go in and soft wash an e-pay deck. We're going to restore an e-pay deck, right? If we're talking about decks and docks, they're like, hey, by the way, can you look at my dock? Yeah, actually, our cleaners, are recommended for this type of situation, and we're going to do, and we can go into the EPA stuff. I mean, all that stuff. We want to protect them. That's their asset, right? Is their home. If we're out there pressure washing a deck and we got caustic going into the lake, it's a big no-no. That's them on the whatever you want to say, but that's their butt, right? Because they hired us. We got hired, so when we opened the Charlotte branch, we actually got contracted to do Michael Jordan's mom's house. And this was really cool, really, really cool. And so I don't know who, it wasn't obviously Michael Jordan, it was a property manager, right? But they called our office in Charlotte, and they said, hey, we have a house out here. And so we looked up the address and everything, and sure enough, it was Michael Jordan's mom's house. And so we were like, this is a big deal, right? And that's our clientele. This is the high-end residential that we're talking about. And so Michael Jordan's mom's house, we're like, shoot, man, that's Michael's mom. Like, we better do a good job here, or else, I don't know. So anyway, my branch manager, Jeff, he researches everything, and we want to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. So we went out there, we met with the property manager on site, and we talked about everything. Their drain going out to the lake was like this big. It was all the gutters to the house that came right out onto Lake Norman in North Carolina. So we had to make sure that we put tennis balls in because we're cleaning the roof. And we're talking, we used 300 gallons of roof mix on that roof. That's how big the roof was. Wow. Huge, humongous roof. And so you're talking about all that going into Lake Norman. Not a good thing, not a good thing. And so we wanted to make sure with the property manager that, one, you're getting a certified contractor out there. Our technicians knew what they were doing. We talked about the runoff. We brought all that to that property manager. They were like, to be honest with you, I never even thought about that. And they're like, no. So that's where you got to become the expert. We blew them away with customer service. They had Japanese maples all around the house. It was a technical project. I mean, in the back was just windows. I mean, it almost looked like the backside of this Marriott. It was the backside of their home on Lake Norman. It was windows like crazy. And so we needed to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. And that's the kind of stuff that got that job. And then we use that jobs after that, right? So it's really important.
What about like a bleach neutralizer? I know you have that on the market for you. We used to use it in carpet cleaning on, neutralize it so we can, bleach, re-dye the bleach spots.
Yeah, yep.
So why can't you rinse it with a bleach neutralizer?
So you definitely can. I mean, there's products on there. We use specifically a final wash is a bleach neutralizer that you can spray on there. The problem is when it's going into a gutter that's going right down the drain into the water, It's easy to actually block the drains and then put your neutralizer around. You can definitely do that though, yeah, 100%. And some companies do neutralizer on the whole house. They neutralize the windows so it won't rust. We do it on metal roofs, we neutralize it, so yes, yeah. There are definitely things that you can neutralize. Now if you're doing a basic house wash to where you're only using 0.5%, you know what I mean? You don't need to use the neutralizer, but in those situations, 100%, yeah. And that breaks down into our technology that we're talking about, because technology is neutralizers, bleach neutralizers, drones, right? Apps, all that kind of stuff that we talk about in our technology. I talk about our technology in our skids, how complex a lot of our skids have come, right? How many people have been watching the equipment over the last 10 years, right? It went from one batching to the proportioner, and now it's even getting, it's getting crazier. I mean, it's awesome, don't get me wrong. But that's technology that you guys can adapt to and say, look, we're not one batching anymore, because this is what happened when we one batch, right? Well, my lazy technicians, they didn't dilute it and then they spray roof cleaner on the house or whatever, right?
Well, I have to, by batch mixing, I have to clean to the dirtiest spot of your house, Mr. Consumer, and with the technology that we don't have to overuse chemicals at all, because I can literally, for that really dirty eyebrow you have up there, I can hit that at the strength that it needs to be, then I can dial everything back.
Yep.
And, really be a good steward of the environment.
Exactly, yeah. And that's where we break into our being green, right? Because we're not using as much chemicals. Our surfactants now have bleach boosters, so we use less sodium hypochlorite now and get the same effect.
Yes.
Like that's where you're going to use all that stuff in your technology. Does that make sense though? So your tools, terms, and technology. So write this down. When you guys get home, you're going to list out your tools, terms, and technology. Why you guys are going to be different, okay? All right, so moving right along. It's all about the presentation. So again, we park our car right in front of the door. We even do it with our trucks, depending on where we're going, how far we're going. But we want to park right in front of that door. Strangers ring the doorbell, and friends knock. Remember that, right? So we always knock, and then we step down 3 steps. We give them room, you know what I mean? And then we present what's going on. Hey, I'm Pat with Precision Pro Wash. We're here to give you a quote. Do you got a couple minutes to take a walk with me and want to, kind of see what's going on? What are your real concerns, right? They love that. You're a servant, right? We're serving that customer. What's going on with your home? Let's take a look at it. Get him out there. When we have people call in, they're like, hey, do we have to be home? Yeah, you kind of be home. Let me explain how the process goes. Because we don't just come out, we don't just give you a quote. This is our process. If you don't like it, 100 other companies on Google, go ahead. You know what I mean? Like, our customers want what we got, and they want the process. They want the system. Because a neighbor might have said, hey, call Precision because this is what they do. And I want it to be same every time. Because they know that the neighbor, and I'm telling you, these guys talk. They talk. They're driving around their golf carts, you know what I mean? They're like, what's up, man? They talk. So first, build out your value, right? You're building your value with your tools, terms, technology, with your pre-inspection sheet that you guys have right there. You know what I mean? If you're not using something like that, you're not covering your butt, that's another tool. That's covering your butt tool, because you saw it. It's got the questions. Is there paint oxidized? Is there missing paint? It's a cover your butt tool as well. But it's also adding value. Ask the seal badge we talked about. Our 19 points to a sale. Create your system. You guys have my 19 points to a sale. That's kind of our bread and butter. You can recreate that for your business, but focus on why you're winning, okay? Why are you guys getting these quotes? And then walk around with the customer. Always measure. People watch, okay? So when you're out there and you're measuring, make sure that you're going to the neighbor's house. Make sure that you're replicating. You're flyering on the way in and way out, okay? And then long or short presentation. I always ask the customer when we're walking around, I'm like, hey, by the way, we go over a presentation at the end, while we're done here. Do you want the long presentation or do you want the short presentation? What do you think? What do you think they pick every time? They want the short presentation. Hey, guess what? It's the same presentation anyway. You like it, right? It's the same presentation. I just want to see where they're going with it, right? Do they want the long one or the short one? You make it fun, right? When we close these jobs, we have a welcome to the family call. So whenever we close a job and territory manager closes a job, we say, hey, I'm going to call the manager and we want to welcome you to the family. Because now you're family. Like literally, we're going to treat you right. Yeah, we have a $500 minimum, but guess what? These guys are way over a minimum every time, so we don't even go over that. But typically we have a $500 minimum. After they do the service, they call us for, there's no minimum. You're part of the family. If they got a pool, a pool party going on, Pat, I gotta get my pool clean. Not a problem, man. We'll put it on. We piggyback those jobs. So we might have a $1,800 job that day, and we're gonna piggyback the pool decks and whatever on that day. But we're gonna get them taken care of. Address concerns and name drop past jobs, jobs that were complicated, that you guys crushed, right? And those people were really happy. Get testimonials. We have sheets. We have 101 testimonial sheets that we have in our sales binder that we give to the customers. Like, hey, by the way, here's 101 testimonials. They're like, 101? Yeah. We do a lot of houses, and these are ones just in your community. And they're like, dang. You ever get somebody like, hey, I want to see a job in your community? We have those already pre-printed from the office, because we know they're going to ask. All right, so the sales presentation. All right, so this is key. Remember, presentation is everything, okay? So go to your vehicle with your measurements. I do this. So after I'm done now, walking around the home, I say, hey, Mrs. Smith, which door would you like me to come in after I do all my measurements? I'm already planning on going inside the home. She said, well, actually, I'll just come out. Not a problem. We can just do it right here on the tailgate of my Prius. You know what I mean? But typically, pre-COVID, I'd be like, hey, which door would you like me to come in? Because we might have went out the screen porch to go walk in the back of the house. Which door would you like me to come in? They're like, oh yeah, just come in through the front door. Great, I'll knock, and then I'll let you know I'm there. Not a problem. They already know I'm coming in, okay? That's when you get to the kitchen table. Go over your company portfolio. Do it again, because you might have gave it to them. I give it to them every time. So when I'm doing my walk around, I'm like, oh, by the way, here's our company portfolio. It's got some pictures in there of services we do. Take a look at that. And it's got things in there, like I said, profile competitor companies, testimonials. It's got real life phone numbers in there that they can call and say, hey, by the way, how did Precision do? By the time I get into the house, it's already sold, guys. I'm not selling. I'm not doing big sales stuff. They're like, this is the company for me. See how that's kind of making sense? And so these are big things you're not going to get anywhere else. This is how I blow the competition away in our area. When we go, they're like, yeah, the other guy didn't call me back. And I hear all these things, and I improve, and I make my stuff better. I ask my customers, hey, man, why did you pick us? Well, because you guys were professional. You answer the phone. Every step of the way from start to where we're at right now has been amazing. And then that's why they keep coming back to us. And quote everything. You want to quote everything. Think about how you're going to systemize the sales. If you guys can really dial in your sales and systemize your sales process, all you have to do is figure out one sales guy can sell $300,000 a year. My trucks are averaging $340,000 a year, right? And it might be different for you. It doesn't have to be $340,000. It could be $250,000, right? But have a goal and reverse engineer that. If you know a sales guy can do $300,000 and you want to be a $600,000 company, how many salespeople do you need? 2, right? Numbers don't lie, okay? So quote everything, because when you start quoting everything, I literally coach guys, right? And they're like, yeah, my close ratio is, about 57%. I'm like, okay, that's pretty decent. And they're like, yeah, but my average ticket's about 400, 450. I'm like, okay, so what are you doing, right? And we dive into that. He's like, well, I'm not quoting everything. Well, I kind of do my estimates through QuickBooks. And I'm like, and he just line items everything, right? You gotta have a system. When you implement this right here and you start doing 3 packages, you will double your average ticket. Easy, within a couple months. I've seen it. All right, so our quoting everything, and this is another thing you guys can see. I teach Sales Boost too at my office in April. If you guys are welcome, to come out. We actually do 2 days hands-on. We go out and do quotes. But the thing about it is, when you quote everything, there's a science to it. You can't just go in there and quote everything and then, package C is everything with a discount, right? A little bit of a discount. But there's a system to it. And your numbers kind of need to go like this, where you have your package A is what they called for. And I always do no less than. So if somebody calls me for a driveway or whatever it is, I'm quoting the driveway, I'm quoting the house and the windows, or I'm doing the driveway, the patio, the pavers, the travertine, whatever it is, right? And I say, all right, no less than my minimum, because we have a minimum. My dispatcher knows we don't roll a truck out of the warehouse unless they have $1,100 on for that day. minimum, because our workers' comp, our insurance, like what we bring to the table is worth that, no, hands down, right? So if I got a $500 day, guess what my dispatcher's got to do? She's got to put a $600 job on there, minimum, for us to run that truck for that day, or else we have to move that job, okay? And so we really strategized on how our packages work. And you want them to go up a little bit, but feasible. So like your package A is 1187. Remember I was telling you about the 7s and the 9s? We do that a lot right there. And our package B is 18. So it goes from, it's about a $600 little bump there, right, to package B. And then you have a little bit more of a bump to package C. But you'll see when you quote everything and you break it down and you do say 5, 10, 15% off. So A is 5% off, B is 10% off, and C is 15% off. You'll see how the packages kind of break down. But sometimes you got to maneuver those numbers in the favor of good, better, best. And you'll see that. Sometimes actually, well anyway, I don't want to get too far into that because I don't want to confuse you, because the numbers can get confusing, but you want them to slowly go up because it's good, better, best, because they're making the educated decision. I want them to go with package C because I'm passing the savings on to them. I'm not having to come back. It's less gas. It's less, I can basically kill 2 birds with 1 stone with 2 technicians on a property if I'm doing the gutters and the windows, because we're already cleaning the windows when we soft wash the house. Now I just go with the water fed pole and it's 30, 40 minutes. So I'm passing the savings on to them in package C, and I say a lot of our customers like package C because we're passing that savings on to them. And they're like, okay, well, Pat, that's a little bit out of your budget, or out of my budget. And I'm like, really? I'm like, the $2,600? So what can you do, or what were you thinking? And they're like, well, I was really around the $2,000 range. And I'm like, really? So well, to be honest with you, I'm glad you said that. We're actually booked out 2 weeks. If you pay $2,000 now, how long do you think it'll take you to get the extra $600? And then they're like, oh, it'll take me a couple weeks. I'm like, well, perfect. Let's sign you up and let's get you on the schedule. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you say, I know that'll work for you, won't it? And so again, I like to play and have fun. I'm not pushy, but if it's no big deal, guess what she just told me her budget was? She said $2,000. What does package B say? You know what I'm saying? So you can downsell. Well, actually, Mrs. Smith, not a problem. I completely understand. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but today with what you know and how we do it, and with what we do it with, how can we get you signed up today? Well, she told me it was a $2,000 budget. Well, let me show you package B, but I'm going to take off your driveway and I'm going to take off your pool patio. Well, actually, for $1,867, for just $1,867, we can get all these things done. She already told me it's $2,000, so she can't be like, well, that's a little out of budget. You know what I'm saying? So you can always downsell, okay? What happens is, what I see a lot of guys do is they're like, well, it's $450, but if you want to add on your driveway, it's $150, right? Now they're trying to add on services. It's really hard to add service. I mean, if you can add on a couple $1,000s in service, I'm hiring you. Where are you at, okay? Because there's not a lot of people that can do that. So you can downsell, though, and say, hey, I'm going to take this off, because sometimes the lady's like, and I know in the back of my head that the pool deck was the main concern, right? So I'm like, so if you don't want to go with package C, that's okay. I'm going to take off the pool deck, and I'm going to take off the, the driveway. Said, well, hold on. The pool deck? Well, yeah. I mean, we got to kind of get down, and here's package B. They're like, no, let me call my husband. We're going to go with package C, right? Or vice versa, right? So you want to kind of get them in there and kind of, you see how that kind of breaks down, though, if that makes sense? And so it works. The packages work. And you don't have to be that, push you. If they don't want it, not a problem. Hey, here's my packet. The estimate sheet's in there. It's a carbon copy. So it actually, ours has 3 to 4, I think it's 4 copies. It used to be 6 copies because it would go throughout our whole office. That was a whole system where the invoice went through the whole office. But we do 3 or 4 copies now because we do like a mix of paper and digital. Because I like the paper. You got to touch it, you got to feel it, that kind of stuff. And it just works. So use 7s or 9s. If you guys start using 7s and 9s on your packages, you're going to start closing more deals too. Believe it or not, dude, when I started doing 7s and 9s on my prices, we started closing more deals. It's crazy. Our closing ratio stays about a 62%. And so once it starts going up, I just up the prices at the next sales meeting, about 10%.
7 is a much more
Yep. Yep, and like Ray said, right? I mean, if they got a PO card for $5,000, you're coming in at $4,997,
And
right?
what he was saying about the pool deck and driveway, once you've given something to somebody, and then you take it away, they want it back.
Yes.
No, don't take, you can't take something away.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
So I guess we'll go back and see.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's like the guy with the, on YouTube, I saw he had $99 yard signs. 1,000 square foot, he said he's busy.
Don't even pay him attention, man.
I'm like, man.
Yep. And that's where we get in our heads sometimes. I see those around town. Well, we don't have 99 yet, thank God. We have like 129, right? But again, these clients aren't looking at those signs, right? And this is another thing about your website. Don't put prices on your website. Don't let them fill out a form and spit them out a price. Don't do that because you're shooting yourself in the foot. Our clients' homes are 10,000 square feet, 5 to 10,000 square feet or more. They're not looking at the 99 because what can they clean for $99? They get their car detail for $900.
People picking up their dry cleaning at the house, they don't care.
Exactly. So, yeah, that guy can have all the $99 washes all he wants, and he can stay busy, and he can, I'm not gonna say, but he can do whatever he wants with that, right? And I'm gonna be fat and hungry, or fat and plump over here, right? Doing these guys, because I want the big fish in the sea. I don't want the little ones, because I'm gonna be real skinny, running and chasing the $99 house. Okay, those guys are great.
Pat washing one house every 2 days at this, or the other guy washing
That's right.
10 $99 houses, you're still making more money.
Yup, I'm working smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
And
5 houses compared to 2.
yeah, and there's and it goes into, don't get me wrong, equipment, right? Some people want to get houses done really fast. We hear this all the time. Well, I can clean a house in 30 minutes. Awesome, dude. Well, I'm going to do that same house in 2 hours because I'm a home detailing company. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting more money than that guy. He's running around doing 10 houses when I'm doing 2, like Ray's saying, and I'm going home at the end of the day and I'm turning my phone off. Where that guy is running and chasing his tail. Don't do that, guys. That's kind of the mentality when we get into the pressure washing industry, that's what it is. It's not. There's much, much more out there where you work smarter, not harder. 100%. And ask for the business, okay? A lot of people don't ask for the business. I've seen territory managers do it. I've seen business owners do it. They give the quote and they're like, here's the price. And they're like, have a nice day. Remember this. Our quotes are minimum 1 hour. Okay? We build the relationship. If you're there for 1 hour, your ticket's going to be $1,200. If you're doing quotes in 15 and 30 minutes, you're in the wrong pond, my friend. Okay? You need to start building the value. Systemize your quote to be there for an hour. You're like, dude, but I can do so much other quotes in that time. Yeah, but I'd rather do less quotes for higher dollar. Okay? It's the same principle, right? Less quotes, more money. And then have them repeat over and over again. Does that make sense? So build your model. I gave you those forms. I want you guys to really take action on this stuff, okay? And put these systems in your business. And talk about the maintenance packages. I think, Doug, you're talking about...
I want to try to.
Good, okay. So I'm not going to get into that too much, yeah.
Depends on when you get done.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I can keep talking. All right, we're going to run through this. What? I don't even know what we're at.
You'll see it a little bit. Ray started.
My bad. Woo, okay. I can talk about this stuff for days, guys. I'm sorry.
Keep going, bud.
I get emotional about this stuff. All right, so this is my last slide. On that note, this is my last slide.
We're just messing with you.
Okay. But you want to talk about maintenance packages, okay? Maintenance packages are amazing because it's residual income and people don't want to shop around. I talked to I guess it was the end of last year. I was like, hey, how would you like a monthly subscription if you didn't have to pay the $2,000 and it was monthly? What would you think about that? And he's like, I would love that. I've really, seriously, I've talked to like 30 people about this, and it's going kind of to a monthly subscription, or we do, instead of doing it every 2 years, we do it every year or every 6 months. We're kind of picking, because you're talking about big homes where you're talking an $8,000 to $10,000 package. You know, that hurts every year. You know what I mean? A little bit. That guy might, he might have to put tires on his car or something. They're probably going to be about 10 grand. You know what I'm saying? So he's thinking about his car. I'm thinking about the 10 grand. And I'm like, all right, how do we work this in? So think about maintenance packages. I don't want to get into it too big, but these high-end clients want maintenance packages. They don't want to keep dishing out the big stuff, okay? And then the final thing is follow-up. A lot of people suck at follow-up. Salespeople suck at follow-up. That's why I call them territory managers. They're managing that client. Like, while the job's getting done, they're there. They're watching the technicians. They're talking with the homeowner. How's everything going? We pull them out. We have a system. We pull the homeowner out halfway through the job, and we do a gutter butter sample. Halfway through, hey, look at your gutters. Because that's really your biggest pop, right? We bring them out. We get them involved in the cleaning. I've literally had people come out with video. Back in the day when they had the video cameras, he was videoing us. I was like, this is really weird. I'm like, you know what I mean? But like, they want to know what's going on. So bring those people out, get them involved in the cleaning, because again, their neighbors are watching. They're going to, talk about it, and they want to be part of it. But the problem is the follow-up. They don't follow up. So my territory managers, we have a day, and I'll put it down here. It's called Follow-Up Friday. And so every Friday, it's just remember Follow-Up Friday. You sit down for 2 hours and you call your customers for that week especially, and then for the month, and we close out the tickets. You're going to get some thick skin. I think, Doug, you touched on a little bit about follow-up, and as far as like you touch them 4 different times or whatever until you're like, just let me know if you're not going to use my service. I kind of got thick skin with that, and I don't bother with that. I just say, look, in 30 days, if they didn't close and you didn't close it, it's going in the dead file. So it gives my territory managers now urgency to close that ticket, or guess what? It goes bye-bye. You know what I'm saying? We take it out of the folder. It's done. We'll still market to those people in the next year, you know what I mean, on our follow-up, but for them, it's done. So it creates urgency to get that thing closed. But the other thing is, obviously, call them later that day. This is a really big one that we use, because again, ours are carbon copies. I like to close the ticket that day. I try to, because we actually, from Monday to Sunday is their close ratio for each territory manager. So if it didn't close that week and it closes the next week, it doesn't go on their sheet. It's still a closed deal. They still get commission on it, but it doesn't go on their record, if you will, right? And so what we do is when we give that estimate, we call them back later in the day and we're like, hey, Mrs. Smith, I know we just were there a little while ago. We gave you the quote. I just want to make sure you can read the carbon copy. And they're like, yeah, actually, I was about to call you. Yeah, we want to go ahead with package C. How many times have you left a quote and then they call you right back later on down the road and they're like, yeah, let's go ahead with it, right? It happens. So what we did was we made it a system because it was happening more often. I was like, we need to just call them at the end of the day and say, hey, just want to make sure that you can read the carbon copy and you can explain it to your husband. Yeah, actually, we were about to call you. Great. Or they're like, no, I really couldn't see it. Well, let me email you the front copy of it. And then it's just another touch, right, that you're there. And then you have your CRM, okay? So your CRM is basically an automated follow-up system. We use Service Monster, and it has that in there, right? It also has a program called like Book Your Schedule or Fill Your Schedule, Fill My Schedule, that's what it's called, Fill My Schedule. And it sends out postcards and reminders to them, okay? Automated, which is beautiful. SendGym does the same thing. And then we do 4 touches a year minimum, 4 touches a year. So we created our marketing calendar, and with the marketing calendar, it tells me whenever we're going to put out our touch, right? It might be initial contact, but it might be our follow-up. All that is on our marketing calendar. And actually, we're going to be giving you guys some awesome stuff tomorrow. But Voicemail Bomb is another one. Have you guys heard about Voicemail Bomb? Where you can actually create, with your voicemails, you can have, it's called Voicemail Bomb. Am I correct on that, Doug?
What?
Is it called Voicemail Bomb, or you can do it through SendGym?
Yeah, there's several, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ones, and it's basically a ringless call and goes right to voicemail. And then you can say, hey, this is Pat, and you want to make sure it messes up a little bit so it's not like pre-scripted. But just say, hey, this is Pat, I just wanted to touch base. I want to make sure everything's okay. I haven't heard from you in a while. You know how many people will call you back and be like, hey, Pat, I'm glad you called me. Everything's going great. Do those kinds of things. You know, calling your customers, hey man, I know it's been a crazy year. I haven't heard from you in a while. Just want to check on you, see how everything's doing. They're going to call you back. Thanks for calling. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Postcards, email, phone calls. I love personal phone calls. I literally have the ladies in the office. We call once a year, at the beginning of the year, we call back all our previous customers, and we just say, hey, just want to touch base. You know, we're still open. I know it's been a crazy year, you know what I mean? But you want to touch base with them and see how they're doing. Give them gift cards. We send out, every ticket over $1,500 gets a Send Jim brownie, the really juicy brownies. They're really good. And they love that kind of stuff. So, you know, with that being said, guys, I want you to take action, okay? I don't want this just to be fluff. So let's really execute. You guys have those pieces of paper, and I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
You go over the paper, or did I miss that?
What's that?
You go over those papers?
Yeah, I did a couple times.
Sorry.
Man, were you sleeping? It was definitely too long, man, I know.
What Pat was saying about implementing, I've got to say, education without action is just entertainment.